Hey guys, how are you doing? It's so nice to, after a short break again. Plans, Watch Nicholas and I, we have something cooking up for you over the next week. So we're going to be back together next week with our planned show today. I wanted to shift gears a little bit and do something of my own. It is about time, after all. It's so nice to see new faces and familiar faces in the chat. Watch Addict, welcome. Peeping Time was there early, watching intently. Junior Johnson, as always, joining us from Michigan, even though it's sometimes late for him. My apologies. I will institute earlier live streams for you once the channel is monetized. Earlier, that Tigran Hamasyan for you, who is an Armenian pianist and composer, a very talented, still relatively young musician. He has spent some of his time in Los Angeles, but I think nowadays he resides in Gyumri in Armenia. And he tours the world with his music. He releases a number of albums. What I really love about his music is how he picks up all these elements from Armenian folk song and the region in general, and weaves that into his compositions that are inflected by modern jazz and fusion. A really talented musician, brilliant composer, if I may say so myself. I have first come across his music through another very talented fusion artist, Zafar Youssef from Tunisia. I'll drop both of their names in the chat. So if you were interested in that short interlude that we have, that was Tigran Hamasyan from his album Fable, and a tune called Samsara. And I met him through Zafar Youssef's music because he was touring and recording with Zafar Youssef, who's also an incredible musician himself. He plays the oud, but also kind of has a clarinet up his nose. It's very hard to describe it. But if you listen to a few of his tunes, you'll know what I mean, and watch the videos and see how he creates that wailing sound that resembles the clarinet. And there are, in fact, compositions that we can bring up later where he basically does a little exchange with a clarinet player, basically playing through his nose, and an actual, incredible instrumentalist himself, Hosni Shanlanderji, kind of playing along with him. Anyway, great musicians. I just wanted to have a way of introducing the show and sharing their music. And hey, we are here enjoying ourselves. I'm gonna have some green label today because green is the color of Rolex, which won't be part of our discussion today, but we have to mention the name. And also, of course, green is the color of money, which is what we're here for, apparently. But that being said, guys, we're going to talk about high horology today. And as I always do, I will start with a counter argument first. And I will try to introduce some brands as a way of entering the world of high horology at a more acceptable price point. We are still going to be talking about a lot of money. We're still talking about 10 to 15,000, which is a huge, still a huge investment financially and emotionally for a lot of people, for a single watch especially. So with that being said, I will start, but I also again want to welcome Justin Forge and Junior Johnson. Yes, that is a picture of young Marlon Brando, actually when he was auditioning for that famous role that gave us James Dean, Rebel without cause. I think it's a nice turn of events that young Marlin lost that role, because otherwise maybe we might not have had the legend who is the late James Dean. The late Brando, I think, would have made it nevertheless, and he did. Justin Force says Muriel Johnstone, that's straight out of Monty Python. Junior Johnson says saw Yosef Latif a few times. Great as well. So I'm gonna just throw a drop of water into my Scotch, help it open up a little bit, and have it sit while we talk watches. So nowadays, of course, the term itself, high horology, sometimes people speak of hot horology, right? Kind of pronounced way, the French word haute, which means high in this case. The original term comes actually from an interesting alliance in 2005. Of course, they haven't invented the term, but the way we use it today in our jargon, in the world of watches, has quite a modern moment of origin. It's less than 20 years old. And it to the moment in 2005 when Audemars Piguet, Gérard Perregaux, and the Richemont Group came together to establish this foundation, this not-for-profit foundation that put at its center the artisanship, the craftsmanship, and the heritage that goes into watchmaking. So the cynic in me wants to say, and the cynical spin on the subject would dictate that at the end of the day, high horology is a phrase that is used for marketing, just as in-house movement as a phrase that is not oftentimes substantiated or proven, just as vertical integration as a model of production is preferred by many companies without necessarily backing it up substantially and materially. We can say cynically that high horology is, after all, a term perhaps not invented, but taken up by these prestige makers like Audemars Piguet, like Gérard Perregaux, which is, no matter its current situation or reputation, a very respected 20th century maison, and Richemont, which has perhaps a disproportionate number of high horology brands within its body, within its ownership, within its corporate structure, right? We can easily count Vacheron Constantin, Gégé de Coutras, of course, the watchmaker's watchmaker, right, as we like to remind ourselves, and of course, A. Lange und Söhne, which, of course, is an interesting addition or supplement to those high horological greats we sometimes call the big three, or more dogmatically the Holy Trinity, right? Audemars Piguet, Vacheron Constantin, and so the interesting thing is, of course, this is now a foundation that's based right in Geneva, in Pont de la Machine, which is used to be one of the first industrial areas in Geneva. It's right by the river, the Rhine River, and it's been also a great exhibition space. And Fondation de la Haute Horlogerie today also hosts the major industry show, industry exhibition, Watches and Wonders, right? That seems to have taken the place of Basel World in the last few years. So that's the cynical point of view, right? That after all, it is a marketing scheme. But I would like to argue that within the names of those recognizable brands and beyond, of course, we can add Vacheron to that list. Of course, we can add any number of independent, truly independent makers, from Philippe Dufour to Roger Smith to Kari Voutilainen to many, many others. But there are those brands that actually privilege above and beyond the number of quote unquote man hours that goes into every single unit that comes out of their manufacture, that actually hand finish, if not all, as many pieces as possible that go into those movements, that try to hand finish the cases, the bracelets, to the highest standards of the industry. And there are many other ways of certifying that. And this foundation doesn't really do that, which you can say maybe is behind this loose definition of the term, right? But it's actually a way of also expanding our understanding of what high horology means, what actually might mean. And at the end of the day, no matter who established this foundation, the concept of privileging craftsmanship, artisanry, and hand finishing, and carefully applied and attentively supervised notion of handwork that goes into the making of watches is certainly not limited to those big names, to those industry giants. And you can in fact make the argument that it's quite the other way around, right? That it is in fact the independent watchmakers who exist in different price segments that are today the real carriers of the torch of high horology, the real priests and missionaries of high horology. So that's the last thing I want to say by way of the introduction, by way of the larger definition, that high horology doesn't have to necessarily come at luxury prices, right? Not all luxury watches are high horology. Omega, Rolex, Tudor, all these brands make any number of great watches. That doesn't necessarily mean they're high horology, whether they cost $5,000 or $15,000 or even $35,000, $50,000 at retail. And high horology doesn't necessarily mean complication either, right? You can have a simple three-hander or even two-hander watch that is hand finished to the highest standards of expectation, or that perhaps carries an uncharacteristically ultra-thin movement that in fact qualifies that watch as high horology. The story may even start somewhere else, using ideas, architectures, and case designs that come from elsewhere, but that are reinterpreted and ultimately executed to the highest standard of quality. And that opens up that word, that phrase, that branding high horology to many, many more brands other than the big three, Audemars Piguet, Patek Philippe, and Vacheron Constantin. And it opens it up also beyond the other usual suspects, right? The Alain Gonzone, Breguet, Blancpain, and many, many others. Vacheron, all these brands that we usually count. So it's a term that I would like to use today with watches that I discuss, and I want to start with something very simple. H. Moser and which is of course a brand that uh, has interesting ways of marketing itself, right? Has had a lot of controversy in the past, and they continue to do that. They have a new project coming up that they have advertised as going back to the original precious metal. Now it says unexpected elements are coming together. So feel free to sign up and register at their website. And I think they will have a reveal very soon. I have to admit, some of their advertisements are quite cool, right? You know, this is the kind of joke we crack about the use of chronographs or even timing rotational bezels. You know, want to break records in the pool or to time your meat on the barbecue. That's apparently what the Streamliner chronograph is for. Again, it's a love it or hate it kind of design. It is a design that really divides opinion. I love certain elements of it, and really can't hang with everything else that goes with it. But at the end of the day, you have a brand in H. Moser that, through its collaborations with street wear brands such as Undefeated, through certain, you know, gimmicky releases they have when industry shows come around, whether it's the Swiss cheese watch, whether it's the Swiss icons watch that they proposed and then have withdrawn in the face of real vitriol from their peers, or the Vanta Black design that they have debuted in the last Watches and Wonders. And I've always kind of thought, you know, again, in my humble opinion, in my very limited, you know, perspective. After all, I have, you know, I'm just like everyone else, just like every other punter, as I call myself. I have my perspective, right? You know, I have pretty strong opinions, but they are not truth. So when it comes to their presentation, I feel they're in a way doing injustice to themselves, but perhaps also some of the more outrageous stuff that they present next to their watches maybe gives us another way of appreciating and focusing on what they do best, which I think is really their three-hander models. In these designs, I really find elements of beautiful finishing, great craftsmanship, and really elements that make the watches very much modern and very much Moser at the same time. For example, the Pioneer center seconds, right, that comes in these exciting fumé dial finishes, the smoky finishes that they have on their dials. The branding is extremely discreet, which I think is a very elegant touch. You have, I think, just the right amount of lume on the dial, which makes it, again, of course, quite unconventional when you think of it, of a three-hander as a minimalist design that may be traditionally worn on dressy occasions. In Moser, you have an execution of three-hander to the highest standards of finishing, which are also reflected in the back of the watch. We'll take a peek at the caliber, but in a way that makes the three-hander as your daily driver, right? As a day watch, a watch for every occasion, right? This is a watch I think that you can own as your only watch and nothing else. And you can, of course, go for something that's perhaps a little stealthier, maybe a little more conventional, right? Because at the end of the day, when you go with this Swiss Mad red fumé dial finish, of course, you get something that is ultimately served to you on a rubber strap, but it takes, of course, just a few minutes to change that strap, and you can choose something that is similarly black, for example, whatever material you're using, leather, or perhaps even an alternative to leather that can dress this watch up in no time. You can pull a Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonnell, and even put like a red crocodile band on it, and that would make it perhaps even more out there if you want to watch that you somehow want to show off, or you can wear it on a glossy or matte black leather band, crocodile or calf skin, and that would pull off any dress occasion with great ease, and it will still exude a sporty and dynamic element that would distinguish it from more traditional dress watch designs, which could be in a way exemplified by Patek Philippe's Calatrava series for generations yet. And the list price we have here is depending on the color and configuration. When we're talking about the steel models like this red fumé dial, you have Swiss franc 12.9. Fumé, as they called it, that's 13.9 thousand. You also have a cosmic green fumé that also comes with this kind of a khaki green textile strap. That is also 12.9. It's not a limited edition, but it is now unavailable. I'm sure it will become available again soon. And you have also for again in the same price segment, more or less, you have the kind of murdered out, blacked out edition of it that I think is actually quite refreshing, because it's not completely blacked out, right? You have the case, which is steel DLC, diamond-like coating. You have your sporty rubber strap, but you also have that what they call the funky blue fumé dial, which is, of course, quite dark, almost black on the outside, and gradiating into this brighter, funkier blue, through shades of midnight blue, navy blue, maybe Prussian blue, and then finally you have at the center something that has this starburst effect. I think these are, again, for the right person, this entire Pioneer Center Second series, I think, are really great everyday watches, great watches that you can use as your daily driver into the office, into your favorite mid-paced physical activity, whether that's jogging, elliptical machine, or hiking. And it is also the kind of watch, especially when you go with the steel ones, no matter how they're finished, and they're finished relatively differently from each other, I think. With the Blue Lagoon being a little shinier, if I may say so. And in those cases, you have also a watch that's much more, I think, under the radar, that can certainly pull off dressier occasions, and it will be your way of really distinguishing yourself at some point. Because let's not fool ourselves, right? We do say that dress watches should be traditional, should be humble, should be mostly undecorated, should only tell time, so on and so forth, should not be too large. But if you are paying about $15,000 for a watch, chances are you do want to make a difference about your appearance, that you do want to display something. It might not necessarily be your wealth, and it shouldn't be, ideally, of course. But it is here a matter of your style, right? You are ultimately showing that to the world by choosing a watch like this that is very traditionally designed and finished, but also distinguished and made different in a way that conveys sporty, dynamic, and really jovial attitude, which I think is what their marketing department plays up a little bit sometimes, in the sense, like, they do have a good sense of humor, right? You have to give them that, if nothing else. So I think Pioneer Center Seconds, for that reason, is a great watch. And again, for me, it would be a concern that they are about 42 millimeters. But I think for most people, it shouldn't be. I do prefer smaller case diameters in watches. But I think, again, you have something in Moser that is a little more present, that's a little larger than life. And you don't want that to be in 38 millimeters. And you have here, of course, an automatic caliber, but a largely skeletonized rotor, which gives you that full display of all kinds of finishing that they have. The rubies, the Côte de Genève decoration, the perlage, and I think it's as a workhorse movement, HMC 200 is quite respectable and beautiful in its own way. It has a power reserve of 72 hours. The watch has 120 meters, which is to say 12 atmos of water depth rating, which again, I think is a great and more than enough rating for a daily driver. And the diameter is 42.8, but the way it sits on the wrist is, if your daily driver today is the latest generation of a Rolex sports watch, this will serve you quite, and you will see it's not actually that much bigger than the Submariner 41 that you have. But as always, and I recommend this with anything and everything, if you are especially in a metropolitan area, if you live close to a metropolitan area, please go out there, try these kinds of watches on, try at least similar watches to the one that you're planning to buy. And even if you're not going to necessarily buy it from that place you have tried, feel free. right? That's why those storefronts, that's why those boutiques are there. They're there to serve you. They're there to take your money. You are the customer. There's no reason to hesitate. There's no reason to, to feel excluded from any kind of brand. So go out there, go into secondary, going to jewelers and other dealers that sell pre-owned watches, going to dealers that sell H. Moser, ideally as authorized dealers. But if you have a pre-owned watch store in your town that has some models, go out and try them and see how they actually sit on your wrist. Because the sheer numbers never quite make sense as they stand on paper. And thank you guys for your upvotes. Justin, Junior Johnson, Rick, Buds Jr. says, not sure what to think of H. Moser. Baby Girl says, give props to the Lord. Thank you. We all give props to the Lord, but I'm here as a humble servant, and I will convey the message for sure. And OG Baby Girl says, I like the red. And Junior Johnson says, a bit big. Again, I would, I've worn 43 millimeter watches that I thought were way too big and unwearable for me. And for example, I wore Grand Seiko's boutique edition 47 millimeter diver once, and I thought that was a watch that you could wear as an oversized sports watch, because it kind of had that attitude. And I think H. Moser, even as a daily driver, even as a simple three-hander, it is that kind of brand. It needs to have a certain kind of presence. It needs to show itself. So with that being said, I think this is the first brand and the first consider as an entry point to high horology, and that is the Pioneer Center Seconds series of H. Moser. Of course, H. Moser also has Endeavor, but those are just a little more expensive and are in an important sense out of the price point that we set for today. So we'll reserve that for perhaps another occasion. But for a three-hander, that's a little more accessible, but also sportier and dynamic. I think that's a great entry point and a great transition into the world of high horology, because again, sometimes we think of high horology as complicated watches, as watches that are formal watches that are only reserved for specific occasions that you won't wear every day. Forget about that, right? You're a fan of Omega, Rolex, and you have a $15,000 budget, and you want to make a transition into high horology from that vantage point of loving sports watches. Here's your entry, right? You can still get a daily driver, add something to your collection right under 15. It will still convey the same edginess, same sportiness, same sense of dynamism. And on top of that, it will also not break the bank. Watch Addict says, how is the Scotch? I did not actually yet. It's really, I mean, Green Label is actually of all the blends that are served up in Johnnie Walker. It's really my favorite. I prefer it so much more to the Blue Label, which I find a little too blended in a way, to the point that you lose all the between everything that goes into the whiskey. Green Label technically is not blended whiskey. It's what they call vatted malt, right? You know, it's basically four different single malts put together, and in this case, it's Talisker, Linkwood, Craggamore, and Colilla. So you have some of the best stuff that goes into the Black Label, but without the added fluff, so to speak. And I'm saying this as a huge fan of the Black Label, pure and simple. I think if you are actually someone who drinks whiskey on a daily basis, we don't judge here, right? That's a perfect compromise, right? A dram of Black Label with a splash of Perrier or your favorite kind of sparkling water. I think that's the best daily drink. Christopher Hitchens is his favorite drink, and he has said it is also the breakfast of champions, except no substitute. So here is to late Christopher Hitchens. The Green Label, which has this great smell of almost like thyme, a wonderful touch of butterscotch and oatmeal, which dissolves once again, I think, is into this caramelly aftertaste. It's a great value when it comes to Scotch, and you know me, I'm all for value for money. We'll know about it in an hour. We'll see if I stay live for more than an hour. No, I'm now, and I will go as possible. Watch Addict, do you consider yourself a drinker of Scotch? Do you drink anything else that can help me suggest something? If not, I can make a very general suggestion that I'm sure will still please you. I'll take a single malt, and you know, it will be a very humble suggestion, and I'm sure you'll actually be pleased with what you get at that price range. But let me know if you drink. You usually drink bourbon. Okay. Very simple. I'll say Aran 10. It's not difficult to find. This is a pretty young distillery. I won't say it's up and coming anymore, because it has been one of the best kept secrets for a while now on the Whiskey Tube. So on YouTube, there are a lot of content creators who have been recommending this brand, and they have a wonderful product, and there's no reason to enter at the highest age statement, which I'm sure will please you as well. But get Aran 10, and get, if you want, Lecheg 12 as well. And you know, take your first dram with Aran 10. Maybe you guys will want to stick to it, or maybe you guys will want something slightly smokier, something slightly peatier. Then you can transition to Lecheg 12 for your second dram, and I'm sure it will probably please your brother-in-law, unless he is a Scotch snob, which beats me, honestly. I appreciate. I'm not really a snob, and I'm certainly not an authority, but I have a few single malts that I really enjoy and that I like sharing with friends. Junior Johnson says about Pioneer seconds. This watch is mostly dial. I think it would look big on my 6.74-inch wrist. Well, first of all, Junior, you have a bigger wrist than I do, so you have that going for you. But I would recommend that you try. I think you can find Moser somewhere in Michigan. Don't count it out yet without at least giving them a chance. I have in the past had a lot of prejudice and a lot of stereotype in my head about Moser specifically, but when I got my hands on a few Pioneers and Endeavors to try them on, I was positively surprised. They're still not the watch for me, right? But it is a brand that I can very easily recommend to someone who is, again, entering the high horological world at a price point that's not Vacheron Constantin, that's not Patek Philippe, and that's not FP Journe. And also at a horological taste that is more leaning towards the sportier, utilitarian, tool watch aesthetic than the formal, dressier, complicated watch aesthetic, right? So I wanted to open it up with Pioneer center seconds precisely because of that, and Moser precisely because of that. Again, not because it's my favorite brand, not because it's the watch for me, but it is something that I can recommend wholeheartedly to the community as an entry point at an acceptable price segment and with a sporty, dynamic design into the world of high horology. You're most welcome, Watch Addict. And Messaging Matters says, popping in quickly to say good evening from the Eastern time zone. It's my pleasure to have you here, Messaging Matters. Please don't forget to upvote. Watch Addict says, Irish whiskey for a pleasant change. Hey, Redbird is always a great Irish whiskey. Redbreast, I should say. I'm sorry. Redbreast 12 is, see, baby girl, you already see I'm trashed. I'm done. Redbreast 12, I think, is another point. But hey, just so you know, it's I don't mean to diss at all, but to me, even though Redbreast 12 is a respectable dram, it's too syrupy and sweet for my palate. I am more leaning towards Islay and many of the other island drams when it comes to Scotch. So I prefer usually the smokier, peatier stuff rather than stuff from the Highlands, for example. So I'm biased, obviously, but it is what it is, right? I would rather go in the first instance to something like Aran 10, Lecce 12, Bunnahabhain, Ardbeg 10, if you want something, that will really give you a nice jolt, a lovely smoky and peated punch to your jaw. You can always reach for an Ardbeg 10, but hey, Watch Addict, by the way, thank you so much for your contribution. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Justin Ford says, I'm partial to anything Redbreast. Yeah, of course, higher age statements can be even better. But again, I'm no snob. So for me, the entry point, and this is our theme today, is always very, very good. Often when you choose a good distillery that appeals to your palate, you can then move to higher age statements because you know that these are the elements that appeal to you, and maybe you will find a heightened sense of those same flavors at higher age statements, which is not always the case, but that can be a pathway to explore, right? There's no, pardon me, especially if you don't know exactly what you are doing, there's no reason to shell out hundreds and hundreds of dollars at a time just to be disappointed, because you can be disappointed even with big brand names, these immediately recognizable distilleries that have multinational giants behind them. Just because it carries a shiny name and has a high age statement, it doesn't mean it will appeal to your palate. It doesn't mean it will be something you like. So it's always, I think, a very safe way to say, hey, whatever, I will try Redbreast 12. If I like it, I'll move on to higher age statements. Hey, I'll try RN12. I'll tell my wife, and she will get me the 21-year-old for my Christmas gift. Why not? Right? I think that's a much intelligent way of approaching it, rather than going immediately to the high age statement just because someone recommended it before you said. Messaging Matters says, I upvoted immediately, of course. 666 subs, you demon. Guys, hey, I actually, instead of Tigran Hamasyan, I wanted to enter with Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast, but I thought it would be too on the nose, and I don't want to anger the man upstairs, so to speak. So we are, I'm containing myself, but I'm very excited, of course, that we hit 666, and more importantly, because I'm inching slowly but surely towards my goal. And I think I will just take this opportunity to say again, if you have not subscribed yet, please do so. For me, everyone here in the chat can testify to how much attention that I pay to any member of this community. You know, whenever someone posts anything on my pages, on my comments, I respond immediately. I always respond to emails. I'm always there for you to, reach out with anything that's related to the world of watches. You can just email me at lordhellespont@gmail.com. So subscribe, stay an engaged member of this community, and upvote the videos. Hit the like button as much as you like. Look around for other videos, and I'm sure you'll find a lot of content. And I will drop a few links to models that I've considered before as they come up in today's discussion as well. Junior Johnson says, I used to drink old Bushmills with Heineken as a chaser. That was the way, Junior. My OGs tell me that this is how they used to drink their whiskey in the bar. Their preferred single malt with some beer as chaser. That's by all means, whether that's single malt Scotch or an Irish whiskey, that's still the OG way to go. And Watch Addict says that's some kind of shot. OG Baby Girl says too cute. I don't know if you're addressing me, but thank you. I know, Baby Girl. It's nice to see you in either case. Justin Forces sounds good. The Heineken shot. Aussie Expat says good day and up votes, guys. Of course, by the way, I'm going to share the link again, even though it's up there. Feel free to jump on. At the end of the day, I'm running a live show now. We can take a little break, do another kind of segment, and return back to this. But hey, Watch Addict says the sign of the devil. Fike. Brent, hi JJ. Brent, nice to see you as well. Eric L. Good as... What is that? Good as Good as what? Good as the... I can't read that. What is it? OG Baby Girl says, I noticed 666. Hello, Brent. Brent, nice to see you. You have been away, but nice to see you again. Guys, yes. I'm gonna basically now turn the discussion to an entry point into high horological watches in the pre-owned market, and then we are gonna circle back again to another brand that I really like and that I actually personally love, to end the discussion. So we are basically discussing 3 brands today, with a little bit of a bonus at the end, but our entry point, again, under $15,000 and with a sporty dynamic slant into the world of high horology was H. Moser and Company. Good as gold. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you, Eric, one of my earliest supporters, one of my earliest panelists as well. I know you are busy, but whenever you catch me live and you can actually drop by for even 5 minutes, please feel free to jump on. With that being said, guys, the information is included in the video description. So if you would like to help me produce quality content, if you want to help me stay afloat simply, and if you want these nightly live streams to come back, or simply have me live stream daily, I will invite you kindly to contribute through PayPal, through Cash App, or sign up on Patreon. If I reach $250 per month on Patreon, the nightly live streams will return. If I reach $500 per month on Patreon, I will be live streaming every night, 6 days a week, and also earlier in the day, at least twice a week. I will do a community post about this, but I wanted to let you know here. Just to repeat, if I get $250 per month on Patreon, the nightly live streams will return. If I can get 500, I will also have 2 additional live streams midday, earlier in the day. So I have at least something that I can provide as content to my viewers on a more frequent basis, let's say, and those viewers in the Midwest, on the East Coast, in the UK, in continental Europe. So that's all I will share at that moment. The Patreon link is there. The PayPal account is Lord Hellespont V, Lord Hellespont V@gmail.com, Lord Hellespont V@gmail.com. I also have a Cash App, and that's $LHVVV, $LHVVV. And Hoffen Smash says, excellent job keeping the show in operation. What junkies need their fix. Congratulations on the AP music. What is AP music? I don't know what that means. Is that the real Hoffen Smash, or some kind of joker? Yeah, I have no clue, honestly. Let me see. Smash. But if the real Hoffen Smash got did he get an AP Royal Oak music, that offshore music edition or something? I don't know. Watch says, I'm on the East Coast, my sleep cycle is fucked, and so is mine. But like, you know, the way my sleep cycle is fucked still doesn't help me run a live stream that's more amenable to most of the people on the East Coast. But hey, and OG Baby Girl says, same here, East Coast. Yeah, I love the East Coast. Can't wait to go back, and possibly can't wait to move back. But we will see. That still remains to be. Let me segue back into Watch Talk, and we are gonna talk about a brand that I actually really like, and that's Vacheron Constantin. And let's bring out this particular example of the dual time regulator. This is a watch that's obviously a kind of acquired taste, right? And we will start with the specific as the so-called Big Three, as the member of so-called Holy Trinity, was always a brand that distinguished itself by more adventurous, shall we say, quirky, but certainly inventive elements of design that are reflected in the kind of métier d'art work that they do on the dials, but even simply on their very case shapes, right? And the Malt series, as it was represented, especially at the turn of the century, around year 2000, were actually very much a reflection of that quirky, creative spirit that Vacheron Constantin is rightly known to have brought into the world of high horology. So you see, this is also a case again that they are also using a tongue-in-cheek element of reflecting their symbols in the larger spirit of design, right? In the overseas, for example, you have that Maltese cross, which is the brand's logo that is reflected all over the watch, especially in the links of the bracelet. And here you have kind of a tip of the hat towards the Maltese eagle and its talons in a way. As you can see, the lugs of the case splay out and are stepped to inspire, to invoke an image of the eagle's talons or the falcon's talons. So the old Malt case is something I think that is quintessentially Vacheron and very beautiful. I've just posted my exploration of Vacheron Constantin previously, especially their Malt series of chronographs. I have also made a video on regulator watches, so I will post that as well. But these are basically designs that are inspired by 19th century idea of placing at the center of a horological workshop a watch that has at its focal point the minute hand, and that is a clock, that is a watch that the watchmakers use to regulate, to synchronize all the watches in that workshop, right? So that's the regulator design. That's a design that has at this focal point, at its center, all the attention drawn to the minute hand. And this is something that is used in modern watchmaking for an asymmetric dial design, for a quirky touch, but also for tipping the hat to this tradition of horology that extends all the way back to late 18th and the 19th century in Central Europe, but specifically in Switzerland. So this Malt dual time regulator has at 12 o'clock the hand for hours, has at 9 o'clock the 24-hour dual time indicator, has the date indicator at 6, and also has at the center of that dial the center, the subsidiary seconds, right? And I think it's really actually a gorgeous design, and you can find these in the secondary market in pink gold. I have also seen them maybe less commonly in yellow gold too. And it has this, you'll see it has this wonderful half hunter case that's engraved on the back, Vacheron Constantin Genève, but it opens, so you can, if you would like, get it engraved inside as well, which can be a nice detail. And you have, again, a beautiful movement that's complicated enough to give you the dual time, right? It has that extra pusher there to manipulate that. The full gold rotor, and that movement architecture that's very reminiscent of old school pocket watches, right? You have here a watch, an example of high horology that's at kind of the other end of the spectrum of H. Moser, right? You know, much more traditional. If it has a sense of humor, if it has a set of references, it's not about modern dynamism and sportiness, but it's about the heritage of watchmaking that has come to its own in pocket watches and then was transferred into dress watches, into wristwatches, and you have that represented not only in the dial layout that harkens back to regulator clocks in watchmaking workshops and also in railroad stations in the 19th century and beyond, but also in this movement architecture in the case back that looks a lot like old school pocket watches, and that also has a half hunter case that would be reminiscent of that sort of watchmaking spirit. And here you see that inside of that half hunter case back that you can, or officer's case back they sometimes call it, right, that you can get personally engraved, and that could be a very interesting gift to someone who appreciates high horology, or simply a gift to yourself because of your distinguished appreciation of high horology. And here you have something that basically comes as a full set, box and papers, beautiful watch, fashion sneakers not included, tweed jacket not included, but certainly that very quirky, stylized expression of high horology in the best Swiss tradition, something you can wear loudly and proudly. Again, something in 39 millimeter, very wearable, something that will wear later because of its peculiar case design with those flayed lugs. So it's something that can actually hold its own on a larger wrist as well. But in any ways, you have really a watch that will make quite a statement. And this is, I think, listed by someone in Poland, I want to say, yeah, Warsaw, Poland. So this is a beautiful example in white gold of the Malt dual time from year 2005. Vacheron Constantin at this time in history, 2022, still offers a great deal, and you don't have to go all the way back, pardon me, to small dress watches to get that kind of deal. Yeah, but someone else's live stream must have ended, guys, since the troll came. Muki, thank you for coming. It's lovely to have you here. It's nice to see you guys. I like to watch. It's lovely to see you as well. Good afternoon from Middle Earth. It's nice to know. I don't know the time difference between Los Angeles and Middle Earth. So thanks for reminding me. Thanks for teaching me, in fact. Baby girl says, a watch that makes me feel no time to take a nap. Really? This one is my video on regulator watches. If you want, in a quick bite-sized video, that's what it was. Yes, but moving on, guys, this is Malt dual time that you can find in pink gold from 2004. Again, you have a watch that's a great example of high horology. It packs a punch. It's in this case, it comes with box and papers again, right around $15,000. If you want high horology with a quirky, stylized touch, with a movement that is finished to the best of standards, and with a little bit of a complication, both in terms of the dual time function and perhaps also in terms of this more unique layout, you know where to go. It's Vacheron Constantin, and the Malt dual time will give you a great bang for your buck. If you're looking for higher segments, at and around 20-25K, in these Malt cases, you have hand-wound chronographs, beautiful, the same Lemania 2310 architecture that powered the 321, that powered so many Patek chronos and perpetual calendar chronos. And that being said, also perpetual calendar chronographs. There are that belong again to the Malt series, and you can find deals starting from 40K all the way to 50K for a perpetual calendar chrono, which again is, relatively speaking, still a decent deal. But the bang for the buck here is really the Malt dual time with the regulator dial and with the beautiful half hunter case, and even the hand-wound chronograph, for which you have to pay $20,000 to $25,000 and still get a great deal. But this is our entry point from Vacheron Constantin into the world of high horology. A model that's even more plain, right? That's maybe a little too plain Jane for some, right? That's not maybe as quirky as the model that I've shown, but it's also not as high horology, if you ask me. But you have something with the power reserve, you know, a unique dial layout with a date indicator at 2.5 o'clock, with seconds on the subsidiary dial and a tapestry finish on the dial. A nice, you know, single folding déployant buckle, a display case back that shows you a decent movement, and you're still under $15,000 for this Vacheron Constantin Power Reserve. Elements of simple, elegant dress watch that are executed with just the right touch of spice, right amount of quirk. This is a white gold model that belonged to the Patrimony series. 36 millimeter, 9 millimeter thickness, so something that you can wear actually quite discreetly, but something that will still give you a foothold and give you a foothold into the world of high horology at a reasonable point of entry. It's again a movement that is based on a JLC gear train, and it is finished according to the standards of Vacheron Constantin. So I think it's quite a beauty for the price, and it's much more traditional and conservative compared to what we have seen in the Malt dual time. So I wanted to present you this as an alternative if you don't want to go with something that's as bold as the Malt dual time. You still have here a JLC caliber that is finished and decorated to the standards of Vacheron Constantin in the first decade of the 21st century, and something that gives you, in a more discreet and conservative design, an entry point into the world of high horology. Junior Johnson says, I'm heading to bed. Thanks for your time. Hey, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you, Junior. I love your support. Thank you for ever so patiently leaving your comments, at least dropping by to the live streams. You're the kind of supporter that keeps me going. So thank you so much. And Justin Ford says, about the earlier Malt case, I love that Vacheron Constantin case, lugs and case back, not enamored with regulators. Hey, I mean, you win some, you lose some, right? I'm always a bargain shopper, Justin. So when I see Vacheron Constantin with a movement that's as nicely designed in terms of its architecture, as beautifully and attentively assembled in terms of its finishing, and all those elements of design, you know, in terms of the case, in terms of the back, I love it. And at a 15K price point for a precious metal watch, you can hardly do any better. I also love option. I appreciate that. I think it's one of the most utilitarian complications ever for anyone who travels, or for anyone who has someone they care about in a different time zone in this world. But I do understand regulator dial layout is an acquired taste, and even a little unusual that it might not appeal to most people. I understand that, in which case, if you can invest a little more money, again, at the 20,000 price point, $20,000 price point, you already have the hand-wound chronograph in that Malt series that uses the same Lemania 2310 eboche that gave us the famous caliber 321 that beats at the heart of the moon watch. So among many other beautiful manual chronograph movements. So that's a great bargain, the Malt chronographs, and I posted the link to that video up here. That's the link to the Vacheron Constantin Malt chronographs. Let me fish it out again and send you guys that link, so you know the kind of work also that I have been doing for a while. You know, again, this is a channel that is dedicated to watch talk, and that is hardly interested in anything else. So I want to make sure that you benefit from the archive of content that I have been building over time. For whatever reason, I can't pull that directly, so let me just search for it and give you the link. At least it's something to keep in mind. You know, again, I understand oftentimes it's, you know, especially when we move out of this particular segment, you know, 10, 15, and $15,000, it's something different. So this is Vacheron Constantin Malt Chronos. So check it out. They have the same case and a beautiful movement beating inside it. So we have tapped. We have you know, kind of put our toes into the secondary market here, looked at an example of Vacheron Constantin's quirky creative spirit that is displayed at times in terms of artwork and craft they put onto their watch dials, at other times in the way they design and execute their cases. A great, of course, example of that is the Comte de Vache chronograph. The watch I showed you today was mainly the Vacheron Constantin Malt dual time regulator dial. It's a great value, if you ask me. Unique design, very wearable proportions. Again, a certain quirky element exhibited by the asymmetric layout initiated by harkening back to regulator clocks. the Half Hunter case and the beautiful movement that beats inside it is just the icing on the cake. I think it is one of the pinnacles, one of the climaxes of Vacheron for me. Even though they remain quite underrated, these Vacheron watches from the first decade of the 21st century. And then I had the pleasure of sharing with you also a Vacheron that was much more conventionally designed and traditionally executed, but still expressed some of that unique creative spirit of the brand. But yeah, you have a case that's much more conservative dress. You have those beautiful leaf hands. You have Romans on the dial, but also, again, an asymmetric layout that gives you the power reserve, that gives you the dates at 2.5 or 2 o'clock, 2.5 o'clock, and that gives you the seconds on the sub dial at 6 o'clock with an automatic movement. And again, I think it's a great deal, and under, even well under $15,000. Now I will actually invite you to maybe take a deeper dive into this quirky, singular, unique creative archive of Vacheron Constantin, and introduce you to an earlier example of Vacheron Constantin's watchmaking. It's a model formerly known as Chronomètre Royal, but because of the unique shape of its lugs, because of its singular case design, that is kind of reminiscent to the logo of a superhero, it's also known as the Batman. I should, rather than the logo, perhaps to the cowl of Batman, and I think it's a very unique case design. I think it's a beautiful watch, and it is, again, right around $15,000 in the vintage market. This is Vacheron Constantin Chronomètre Royal, that distinctive half Maltese cross tank buckle, a watch that's very wearable by today's standards, a watch that exudes a certain kind of presence and charisma that's unique to it. Here executed in white gold, with those Dauphine hands, beautiful matching index markers, wonderful silver sunburst dial and automatic movement. And the dimensions of the case actually are quite wearable if you treat it as a dress watch, because they are 36 millimeter, and it will wear, I think, a little larger, in fact, owing to this daring case design. Imagine all these haters, man. Imagine having so much hate in your heart that you would be racist against Black people, racist against Asian people, racist against my people. For what exactly? For what are we trying to do here? Like, clearly you cannot beat me. I'm here to stay. So, brace yourself, because I am coming for you eventually. Watch Nicholas, it's wonderful to see you, man. Thank you for dropping by. Thank you for greeting me, and please follow Watch Nicholas's reminder and upvote when you can. I really appreciate you. We were dipping our toes into the pre-owned market for wristwatches to find values in high horology. I particularly recommended Vacheron Constantin as a way of entering that world in the case of, again, traditionally designed dress watches executed to the highest standards of horology, but infused with the unique and quirky creative spirit of Vacheron Constantin that still is carried through in designs such as the 222, as the Overseas, and also as, for example, the 1955 hand-wound, beautiful, stylized cow's horns lugs on what is ultimately a very tastefully designed, assembled, and finished hand-wound dress watch. Justin is greeting Watch Nicholas as well. It's wonderful to have you all in the chat. It's what a pleasure to have people like Justin Forge, like Watch Nicholas, like Watch Addict, like Mookie, like Baby Girl, like Junior Johnson, like Eric L, like Brent, Messaging Matters. All these people watching my show, it brings me great pleasure. And guys, I cannot tell you how happy I am to be with you. So we suggested Vacheron Constantin as still a unique but also dressy entry point at that price segment under $15,000 into the world of high horology, especially if you feel a little more comfortable in the world of pre-owned watches. And if you don't, I'm here to help, right? You can always contact me for advice through my primary point of contact with us, which is lordhellismondv@gmail.com. So please feel free to do that whenever you would like, and I can help you acquire your next pre-owned piece. I'll help you sift through all these different examples. I'll help you distinguish what is a better example. I'll help you look for what exactly it is that makes that particular watch a good or bad example. I'll help you sort through it. People keep saying vintage is a minefield. All you need is either a dealer whom you can trust completely or someone who can help guide you through the world so you can find the best option for you within your own budget, within your price point. And I will be more than happy to do that. We have considered Vacheron Constantin for that. If you're entering, of course, the world of high horology, especially from the off utilitarian, sporty watches for the everyday, we have also looked through the Pioneer Center Second series by Moser Cie company. So those were our two options for entry points into high horology under $15,000. Our next point is actually going to be a wild card. I'm going to share with you a watch that's above our price points. I hope you can kindly allow me to do that. but also a watch that punches well above its weight when it comes to it provides. And this is, again, one of the high points of high horology. Breguet, one of the most storied and respected brands, of course, that fall perhaps outside of those three brands that are grouped under the signifier high horology, but a brand that is named after one of the most brilliant minds of the 19th century, especially in the horological world, one of those people whose legacy carries into watchmaking today in terms of its complications and components he invented and that he put his signature on. And that is, of course, Abraham Louis Breguet. And this is Breguet perpetual calendar. The reference number is 3787. And you have something that is just beautifully designed, as always, engine turned on the dial, decorated by an hand-guided engine. You have a perpetual calendar with a beautiful moon phase and a retrograde date, which I think is just the cherry on top, just the icing on the cake, right? You have the Breguet hands for hour and minutes. You have that serpentine hand for retrograde dates. You have day, month, moon phase, right? And the leap year indicator hiding right between 1 and 2 o'clock and right under our minutes hand. What a beautiful and elegant watch, quite discreet in white gold. You have the case that's beautifully fluted all around, what they call sometimes also coin edging, those teardrop lugs, which I think are the height of elegance when it comes to a dress watch. Of course, that gorgeous rotor in full gold that's decorated with the same technique of guilloche. And of course, you have the pushers. You have nicely stylized bay of Breguet on the déployant buckle. And what a beautiful dress watch this is. A perpetual calendar, moon phase, with a leap year indicator and with a retrograde date to boot, which means what? It actually jumps. The hand jumps right back to 1 after the month is over. So what a beautiful watch. This is something that you can get right under 20,000. But what an incredible bargain for something at that price range. This is Breguet Classique, a perpetual calendar in 18 karat white gold. The particular model the particular set that I'm looking at is actually box and papers, right under 20,000. And the case diameter is actually 36.5. And imagine how beautiful this is, 8.5 thickness. It is, by the way, my pleasure to help people who are listening in to buy these watches. This has been an untimely meditations tradition. This has been a tradition of Lord Hellespont V, that every time I do a live show focused on a particular model of watch, where I present on half a dozen examples of a given model, and I pull up pages on Chrono 24. By the end of the stream, a lot of these will be gone. So you're welcome for the free help I give. It just goes to show you how valuable the information I provide here already is, for free. So feel free to support the channel in any way you can, and feel free to reach out to me at lordhelespontv@gmail.com if you actually want to avail yourself of my suggestions, whether you have a model in mind already or you want my advice pertaining to a specific category of watches, right? Say, for example, you have $25,000 and your calendar, right? What can that get you? And here's an example. For instance, and this entire show, in fact, is an example of what you can find under $15,000 when it comes to mostly three-handers, but others as well. And this has been the Breguet 787 in white gold as a wild card. That's not under 15K, but under 20, but packs quite a punch for a perpetual calendar that is in the extremely wearable size of 36.5 at 8.5 millimeter thin. It is an amazing piece. Honestly, I don't actually have a one watch in collection policy in my collection, so this might well be a model that I will look for next time I'm on the market for a dress watch, which is a little far away now. But this is certainly a grail watch for me. So we discussed, my friends, a couple of entry points. We said that if you are approaching the market from more dynamic, sporty, utilitarian perspective, and you want to take a dip in this refreshing pool of high horology, H. Moser and their Pioneer Center Second Series, with their more in-your-face design elements, the smoked fumé dial finishes, and that bit of lume and flash they have on their dials can provide you an interesting everyday watch that can even be one and done for many people. Let's face it, right? And that is already a lot of money to put into a watch. So maybe you want just something cute and aggressive at the same time, and that is quite a watch, right? It is 42.8 millimeters. It is a little large. It is a little larger than life, but if you don't really want it to be discreet anyway, so that's one option. Vacheron Constantin, if you want to dip your toes into value right under 15K. We looked at the Malt dual time regulator, which I think is a great execution of Vacheron Constantin's approach to high horology in its most elegant and quirky way possible. We have also looked at the Power Reserve model of Vacheron Constantin, again, from the first decade of 2000, which is very undervalued for Vacheron Constantin watches. And you can get a watch like that that is much more conventional and traditionally designed, much simpler, much more discreet. And that's also right under 15. And we have gone into chronomètre royal from 1960s, something that the collectors call the Batman. And that's the kind of Vacheron Constantin watch that you can acquire for under 15K as well. And of course, when we are talking about Vacheron Constantin, all of these models are, of course, precious. So if you want an entry into the world of high horology, not at steel, not at the sporty dynamic angle, but in the precious metal, slightly more formal, dressier alternative and angle is a great point of entry. And Justin Ford says Breguet is the bang for your buck. Breguet is the last one we considered, right under $20,000. It's for a perpetual calendar with the retrograde dates, with a beautiful moon phase, and with the leap year indicator as well. I mean, so what can you ask for? Rocco Cirio, I will just read this so I can. It's an occasion for me to respond to this senseless understanding of the entire endeavor. I'm here to share my knowledge, share my expertise. I'm here to help people make the best decisions for themselves in the world of horology, both from a financial perspective and an emotional perspective. I want everyone involved in this hobby to stay in it, to be in it in the long term. I want them to sustain their interest. I want them to feel at ease with the investment they made, not in a way to turn a quick profit, but with the long-term perspective of enjoying their watches, right? And sharing that passion with others, expanding the community as we go. So I am not begging for donations. I am asking for the right value of the knowledge that I provide to the community here. If people consider it valuable, they contribute to the channel so it sustains itself, so it continues its existence, so it increases in the quantity and quality of its content. If you don't like it, take the exit. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. I'm sure you won't be missed, but I have a very loyal community supporters, and they will stand by my side. And trust me, they're increasing every single day. And if you're another job, which I may or may not quit, because I am going to make this my job eventually. And it is going to be my only real job. And I'm not begging, but I will continue to ask for contributions for the value of the work that I provide and for the time, work, effort, and research that I put into it. But what would you know about the value of real work? What would you know about the value of reading knowledge? Would you know even if passion actually hit you in the face? You wouldn't recognize. So let's not bother with this clown. Rocco, I am drinking for you. You won't be missed. Justin Ford says, nicely done, LHV, cogent and articulate arguments for 3 unique cross-sections of haute horlogerie. These 2 hours flew by. They flew by for me, and I have actually one more brand to introduce to you guys, and then I will be signing off. So I think I need maybe another 15 minutes to half an hour. If you have the patience, stay with us. If you have to go, if the bed is calling you, if your significant other is calling you, or simply you have something better to do, feel free and come back and watch the last half hour at your convenience, because we are shifting gears a little bit and moving back into the world of new watches, of independent brands, and of brands that provide an entrance into the world of high horology under $15, and in this case, largely under $10,000 as well. And this is a brand that I really love. They're based in Austria, and they call themselves Habring2, after their founding couple, Maria Christina Habring, who handles the business and marketing side of the brand, and Richard Habring, who is actually a watchmaker who has for many years worked for IWC, and he is mostly known in that role for basically rethinking the split-second chronograph execution, which is the kind of expertise that he has carried into Habring2 as well. And really with Habring, you have an incredible archive of models they have produced in the past. So many different models that you can explore under $15,000. So I will just show you a couple of different things. So you have actually, a few entry points yourself for you to explore the brands further. All of these watches that I will display are basically on $1,000, and they all bring out an element of high horology, whether it is in the quality of execution and finishing, inside and out, or in the form of unique complications that you can otherwise only find at a price segment 3-4 times, for 3-4 times as much what you get Habring for. So let's start with right in the middle with Habring2 Chrono Felix. Felix is basically all the models they call Felix is based on an in-house caliber. The caveat needs a little bit of an explanation, because in this case, for example, in the chronograph, if you know a little bit about watches, you will see it is a caliber that takes its larger architecture from Vacheron 7750. But in the case of Habring2, all the parts are actually supplied by the best of the best, unless they are actually produced in-house at Habring. So the movement is built from scratch at Habring according to their specifications, assembled by them, and finished again according to the highest standards they have, and that is expressed in all these different finishes, whether it's a radial grain, brushed grain, perlage, blued bridges and screws. You can see it anywhere in the watch in terms of also case finishes. And I will actually dedicate an entire video to Habling 2 watches soon, because I will have the pleasure and the occasion to visit the Passion fine jewelry boutique down south. So I'm looking forward to that visit. But I wanted to share with you a little bit of my passion for Habling. These are their hand-wound chronographs with that traditional 2 registers, running seconds, 30-minute totalizer, and of course a center chronograph seconds hand. It's a monopusher chronograph, so start, stop, and reset is all handled through that single pusher, which gives it at once a very unique appearance, but also a very classical element of design. The design elements of Habling 2 are really mid-century modern. To me, this is very appealing. It might not be necessarily to you, but they are not so daring and so bold that would alienate, I think, any fan of horology. They have these beautiful salmon dials that they have all across their range, but I think it looks especially beautiful in their simple dress watch and in this hand-wound chronograph, hand-wound monopusher chronograph, which is already a complication, right? It's much harder to execute a monopusher chronograph than the traditional 2-pusher. So this is really a beautiful, beautiful piece of watchmaking at quite an accessible price point. They have various different designs. I know the manufacturer itself is quite amenable and open to the end customer, especially if you have minor specifications and modifications in mind that are going to be applied to a standard model. So at that level, at that price point, there are not many brands that provide the kind of service and product as Habring, and I think that they need a little more attention paid for all the hard work they have done now for almost 2 decades. It's coming. I think if I'm not mistaken, they were established in 2004. And I think they have come into their own for quite some time to reap the fruits. The panda configuration is great. The snail dial that allows all sorts of different measurements, chronographs are really I think like this is an incredible deal at around $8,000 for a mono pusher chronograph that is finished and executed in this way. I think it's quite incredible. Good night, Justin. I'm sorry that I took that misstep there, and I think I may have removed your comments there for a second. I apologize for that. I was just trying to get rid of some trolls there. So I think we are back on track now. So thank you for being here, and rest well. So this is their mono pusher chronograph, and they list right around $8,000, and with all these different dial configurations, whether we have the syringe hands and the sporty dial that has the snail right in the middle, or the classic 2-register panda look, or the salmon dial. I think these are all offer great value. The salmon is my favorite, with those slightly more stylized Dauphine / sword hands. This is an incredibly classy watch, and really finished to a standard that you can hardly find elsewhere at $8,000. And the icing on the cake is, the cherry on top in this case, is that you have a beautiful chronograph that is under 39 millimeters, right? 38.5 in this case. It's hard to find a good chronograph that comes in this wearable size. Of course, the icons are right around that, right? You're looking at a Rolex Daytona, you're looking at something 38.5 millimeter in case diameter. You're looking at Breguet Type 20, you're looking at 39 millimeter and change. And you have Habring2 Chronofelix, or Chronofelix, a mono pusher chronograph that's designed along the codes of a 2-register, 2-eye hand-wound chronograph, but executed to the standards of high horology that are worthy of independence, right? This is a brand that's still very small, that still makes a minuscule number of watches every year. Let me double check. I took a note of this. I think Habling, in fact, makes less than 100 watches, maybe closer to 50 watches per year. So you are getting something that's quite rare, that's quite exclusive, and that's assembled and finished accordingly, because there's more man hours on every single unit. So I think it's quite a great deal for that. The next one I want to show you is actually the Foudroyant Felix, which is a little expensive, more expensive if I'm not mistaken, but again, not something that breaks the bank. This is a very beautiful watch and comes with a complication that's not found easily elsewhere. You have the center seconds is actually jumping seconds, right? You know, it's actually ticks, as you can see here. And foudroyant, of course, refers to the split second on the subdial at 9, which makes a turn at 1/8 of a second. So it's quite a little marvel, again, right around at or around 8,000, following very traditional codes of mid-century aesthetics. You have the split second at 9 o'clock, the flashing seconds, the foudroyant, and you have the center seconds that are actually jumping, that are actually ticking. And you also have a pointer date version, which of course costs just a little more. Let me double check. I don't want to mislead you, but the foudroyant date should cost should probably cost around 9,000. Again, nothing that breaks the bank at 8.5, 9,000, and you have something that is quite unique that you won't see on anyone else's wrist. And you have the hand wound caliber in this that is in that same 38.5 millimeter case, flashing seconds at 9 o'clock, center seconds that tick also, like the jumping seconds, I should say, that is mounted centrally. And you can also get it with the date version, which comes in a bigger case and has the option for an automatic movement as well. And I do love reflected that salmon dial with contrast stitching in this version. Another model that I really like is, of course, simply the Felix, right, which is their most plain Jane watch. Again, the same 38.5 millimeter case. And you have a dress watch that has the mid-century modern aesthetic, right? That's not absolutely classic. That is very distinctive with the Arabic numeral at 12 o'clock. That is, in a way, setting itself apart with having the subsidiary seconds dial at 9 o'clock rather than 6, or rather than having center seconds. And that comes again in a number of different dial colors according to your taste and choice. And even something like this that resembles Breguet numerals, if that is indeed what you are looking for. And when it comes to that particular watch, the Felix, in fact, you're looking for something around 55 to $6,000 for a dress watch. And I think that is, again, quite reasonable when you take into account the kind of attention to detail and care you have in this model. Of course, you have here that example of watchmaking at its beautiful simplicity with the A11B caliber hand wounds. You still have the blued screws there. You still have the circular grain, but this is a much more plain Jane execution than what we have seen in Foudroyant Felix, right? You know, the dress watch with both flashing seconds at 9 o'clock and jumping seconds centrally mounted. And it's also, of course, much more plain Jane than the monopusher chronograph that we have seen at Chrono Felix. But you have, again, a very wearable watch for the everyday that you can choose and to a certain extent customize to your own liking, and that you can really wear for each and every occasion. This can be easily a great one and done watch for someone who doesn't really care about the particular brand that the watch dial sports. This is the kind of watch for people who know the real horological value of what they put on their wrist. This is also the kind of watch that any collector of any caliber, experience, or finances can use as a daily driver with absolute dependability and with almost instant kudos from anyone who knows their watches. And you can go either for a simple two-hander with seconds on the sub-dial, such as this, whether you choose the plain dial in contrast with its black appointments and blackened hands, whether you choose the enamel dial, whether you choose the salmon dial that has that beautiful brushed grain, and the radial turning for the sub-seconds for in these salmon, green, and blue colors. Or maybe you want to go again with another classic, a beautiful hand-wound 2-register chronograph, or you want to change things up a little bit and want something that has some masterful display of chronological or horological, I should say, magic, where you have the flashing seconds at 9 o'clock and jumping seconds centrally mounted. Vince Fine Arts says, I think I'm having a little bit of a connection problem here. Sorry about that, guys. We had a little bit of connection trouble there. This is, we were just discussing the Habring2 brand, offering 3 examples of their collection that offer us an entry point into at least elements of high horology, here at $5,500 to $6,000 in the form of a hand-wound dress watch with a mid-century aesthetic, very wonderful workhorse hand-wound movement, 7 millimeter thickness, 38 millimeter in case diameter, beautiful, discreet, everyday watch that you can wear from the office to the bar to any really, mid-paced physical activity, which you can define as broadly and widely as possible, but also in a very dressy occasion as well, especially if you choose one of these white dials, whether it is the black against white aesthetic, or this enamel one that's distinguished only by its Arabic numeral at 12 o'clock. And the dial color is salmon rather than a copper or pink. I think it's a beautiful color, and I will try to get even better shots of it once I actually get myself down south to find jewelry and have the chance to examine these watches myself. So I think this, yeah, I did freeze, baby girl, and thank you for staying with me for that time, because I was just experiencing a specifically disheartening connection problem. I'm trying to, since you asked the question, I wanted to see how Habring2 actually makes their salmon dials, because all these brands, as you know, actually have different methods of producing that color that is generically called salmon, but actually are almost in each case made in a different way. I think in this case, it's some sort of galvanization that applies the paint. I don't think it's a pink gold dial like the Alan perpetual calendar that has the same claim to being salmon, but is really actually a full pink gold dial. I think in this case, it's some sort of galvanization process that applies that color to the dial on this case. But what the dial is made of, I'm guessing it's salmon. I'm sorry, I'm guessing it's brass. But let me double check that and get back to you. I'll try to write to you once I find out what the dial is actually made of. But since it's slightly differently finished from one model to another, it's actually different whether you are getting the Felix, which is the two-hander with seconds on the subdial at 9 o'clock, or you're getting the Chrono Felix, which is the mono pusher two-register hand-wound chronograph. It's a slightly different color. And then the Foudroyant Felix, which has the flashing seconds at 9 o'clock and the jumping seconds centrally mounted. I think that kind of is the same color and same dial as Felix, but it's still, at least in the date indicator version, it does look a little different again. But yeah, the Foudroyant Felix date, which is the pointer dates at the chapter ring or around the chapter ring, is quite a nice touch as well. All right, with that being said, guys, thank you so much for the love and attention you showed me today. It's wonderful to see you all. Once again, we discussed in this shorter presentation various entry points into high horology in terms of new watches bought at retail. We looked at the unique, sporty, tongue-in-cheek dynamism of H. Moser and Company with their Pioneer Center seconds. At the end of the journey, we looked at various models of Habring2, which is a boutique independent that holds both the hand finishing and complicated standards of high horology near and dear, and offers you a variety of options under 10K, whether it is the dress watches, or rather the two-handers with seconds on the subdial, or the hand-wound chronographs. And in the mean time, at the center section, we also looked at a number of options from Vacheron Constantin, the secondary market, that carry their own unique elements of that quirky aesthetic of high horology that Vacheron Constantin always carried forward with its creative spirit. And we have also, as a wild card, because it fell beyond the $15,000 budget that we set for ourselves, we looked at a perpetual calendar from Breguet, and you should rewind to see what the exact model was, but it was a beautiful little piece with a retrograde date indicator and a gorgeous traditional moon phase as well. If you want to support me, hit that like button on your way out. Subscribe if you haven't. I'll be with you with even more watch content in the coming days and weeks. We'll have a state of collection video next week. I will have a number of sub-collection ideas that can help people start their own collections with a certain direction. So I will kind of do groups of 3 within my collection as well, to give you ideas to organize your own collection, think about the future of your collection, and start, in fact, collecting watches yourself. In the meantime, if you want to support the channel, you know the information is in the crawling ticker. It is also in. I'm going to post the links in the chat now, but these are all the ways you can contribute via PayPal. And this is also my primary point of contact for all the advice and knowledge you need on the world of watches. Lord Hellespont lordhellespont5@gmail.com. That's lordhellespont5@gmail.com. I have a Cash App, which is $LHVVV, $LHVVV. And I've also established a Patreon and made the announcement today. If you want to bring me back on a nightly basis, this will happen immediately after I reach $250 per month as a contribution. And I will also add 2 more weekly live streams at an earlier part of the day, midday for me, so I can do something on a more frequent basis and in a more interactive fashion for my audience in the UK, in continental Europe, and even in other parts of the Americas that I can't otherwise reach as well. So with that being said, guys, thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. Hit that like button. I'll see you soon enough, and keep your eyes peeled for the next Wolfpack collaboration, for the next collaboration that I'll be doing with my friend Watch Nicholas. We're already brainstorming. We're already getting our forces together. We're already coming up with something quite interesting for all of you. So I'll see you next week with the state of the collection and my collaboration with Watch Nicholas. Until then, everyone, adieu. I wish you a good evening, good night, and a good morning from Los Angeles. Take care.